Hey y'all! Alright, today's video topic is something that I get asked about a lot, or maybe not even asked directly, but kind of indirectly. It's either said, or maybe people just assume this. I'm not really sure. But off-season calories really do not matter for your contest prep. Of course, there's caveats here, but overall, even if you get to work your calories up to a high level in the off season, that does not necessarily mean you will be able to diet on more calories. And a lot of people who talk about reverse dieting talk about it in this way, like, oh, if you properly reverse, you're gonna be able to get super lean on a ton of calories. I hate to break it to you, that's usually not how it works. For some people, yes. Of course, like always, there's a bell curve. So there's extreme responders. We'll call those hyper responders. And then there's under responders, people who kind of just like, no matter what, it's just kind of the worst end of the spectrum for them. And then there's most people in the middle. So for the hyper responders, this might be the case. But for most people in the middle, and then definitely the under responders, this is not going to be the case at all. But this does not mean that it is not important to work up your off-season calories. That's incredibly important for different reasons. But the reason should not be so you can diet on a lot more food. If you are listening to this and you are a physique-based athlete and you are getting on stage for a competition, you're going to be achieving very, very, very lean levels of body fat. That is not going to be easy, no matter how we slice it. Like, the end, it just kind of sucks for most people in different ways. Even if you are regularly like if you're just dieting and you're not doing a competition, if you're trying to get considerably leaner than where you were previously, which is usually the goal of dieting, that's going to be a challenge. And off season, there's a lot of reasons why we should bring our calories up, and it might potentially allow you to get a little bit leaner on a little bit more food, but that should not be the reason why we're focusing on the off season food. And I'll tell you why. So in the off season, we are trying to work our calories up, and I call off season anytime when you're not dieting. So a non-caloric deficit period, whether you are, reversing, which is like adding food kind of slowly over time, or you're just maintaining some weeks, adding some other weeks. When you're not in a chronic calorie restriction, I'm calling this off season, okay? And when you're in that phase, there are a lot of great reasons why you want to bring your food up. One, mentally, it's going to be really nice to be able to eat food, enjoy food, and also be able to be a little bit more flexible with your choices, right? So say, you were coming off of a diet, you're not really as flexible then just because of choices with lower macros or calories. Now you have more food, you can have a little bit more flexibility. Mentally, this is really, really nice, and you're just not in that chronic state of like hunger and like, when the fuck is my next meal? And because we all know that that's kind of where you live when you're in that, extreme calorie restriction. So one, mentally. Two, hormonally. Your hormones will, of course, downregulate or upregulate for certain hormones when you are in a dieting scenario, which is why it's important to not chronically be too calorie restricted, right? So things like thyroid is going to go down. Your leptin is going to go down. That's involved with satiety. Your ghrelin is going to go up. Your cortisol is going to go up. Your sex hormones are going to go down. So these are important things that we need to regulate. And if we're chronically restricting calories to a very low level, that's not going to be a good thing. And then finally, having calories higher is really important for growth and recovery. So in the off season, again, not dieting phase, the goal is to be putting back on lean tissue that you might have lost in your diet. And if you are, say, a competitor or somebody who's just looking to put on more muscle mass, because who's not looking to get more jacked, you are going to need calories to grow and recover. So that's really where the focus should be in the off season, not like, oh, if I get my food up, I'll be able to diet on 5 more carbs. Like, okay, like at the end of the day, at the end of a diet, it's just kind of like, let's do what it takes to get there. But in the off season, you're going to be able to use this food and push this food with your training sessions, with the intensity in your sessions, and then also with the recovery from those sessions, because that's how we grow, is in the recovery period. So those are just a few of the reasons why off season calories do matter, but not necessarily matter towards the tail end of a diet. Remember guys, if we're dieting, it's kind of an all-in process, right? Like, we're ready to go. We're physically ready, mentally ready, hormonally ready. These are all important things, which is why having a proper off season is key in order to be able to go all in on said diet, right? But it is important to work your calories up in the off season for the reasons that I mentioned. Hormonally, we want to be in a good place. Metabolically, we want to not be, so suppressed. and just from a training perspective, you know, the growth and recovery process is going to be really key. And just intensity in the gym, intensity in your life, like having energy outside of the gym to do things, like that's important. And sometimes we can forget about that, like when we are in that dieting state. And then lastly, mentally, like it's mentally nice to be able to have a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more food, but do not go into an off season thinking that if I work my food up, then I'll be able to diet on a lot more. That may be the case for you. And that may especially be the case if you maybe dieted like super restrictively, like overly restrictively to the point where you didn't need to be that restrictive. And then maybe now that you work with, you know, a coach or, you know, having the proper systems, like you have really good off season, and then you might be able to get a lot leaner on more food than you did previously, because maybe before you were kind of just like haphazardly dieting or just like slash things from the beginning. So there is room to improve that, but just know like those last few pounds, they're probably always going to be pretty hard. And unless our body wants us to be there naturally, which it doesn't, if that's why you're trying to get there, it's going to be a real big struggle to get there. So just be able to understand that, and know that getting your calories up in the off season is so important for so many reasons, but not just for the dieting phase. They are pretty distinct. They do go together, but make sure that you are prioritizing your off season as far as, you know, training hard, being a little bit more flexible, you know, taking the proper time to like grow and also get your hormones right if that's something that got affected with your diet. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I know this is something, like I said, I get this all the time, whether it's a direct question or like an indirect question. This is usually like the big one for people. So thank you guys so much and have a great day.